Welcome to WVUE Newsmakers. Here is your host, Warren Bell.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of our program on this week before the Christmas holidays arrive in full force. Later in this program, we're going to meet representatives from the committee organizing a major celebration honoring the 175th anniversary of the Battle of New Orleans. But before we get to that, we're going to be talking about another more contemporary political battle of New Orleans. Actually, we'll be talking about the withdrawal of someone most of us thought would be entering that battle as a candidate for mayor. I'm talking about the gentleman to my right, former New Orleans Mayor Dutch Morial, who announced just this past Thursday his decision that he would not run for what would have become his third term in office. Dutch, of course, served as mayor from 1978 until 1986. For quite a few months, in fact, for about 8 or 9 months already, New Orleanians were being treated to billboards all around town, encouraging Mr. Morial to re-enter the arena of local mayoral politics. And the former mayor made a point of keeping the door open to a possible attempt to unseat incumbent Sidney Bartholomew. But on the day before qualifying ended, Dutch appeared with members of the family to announce he had decided to leave the contest to its present major contenders, who of course are Mayor Bartholomew and his challenger, attorney Donald Mintz. Mr. Morial, no one would ever presume to put words in your mouth. Why don't you tell us in your own words what brought you to this final decision? Because even your closest friends said you really and truly were agonizing over this until that very last moment. What finally clinched it for you?
Well, a number of things. I don't think it was any one element. I think it was a variety of factors which were considered and a consensus surrounding all of that. I don't think this is... The thing that I was dealing with was not something that was very easy to quantify, because we were dealing with quality issues and quality matters as opposed to quantity. The quantitative data was in and been confirmed, tested several times, and I felt very confident that should I engage in a contest, I could have emerged victorious with the right organizational effort and the support that had been indicated. The financial support was there, the organizational effort was ready to, and poised, ready to move and become active. But there were some qualitative considerations. I think factors that I had to consider that the incumbent nor the challenger must consider. One is the fact that I've been there. Though the incumbent's been there for 4 years, he quests for another 4-year term, which is a natural kind of thing. But for me, I have been in the office, I know what it is, and it wasn't the idea of running and losing. It was running and winning, and then governing, and the quality of that, and how does one deal with that, and how can one shape an administration in these times. Though I think I could have risen to the challenge, it would have been extremely difficult, very time-consuming, very intense. The fact that we would have to attract quality people into an administration, I sort of in the last few days viewed it somewhat like my campaign in 1977, because I'd been getting calls and requests and letters from people willing to volunteer, new people who had never been involved in campaigns before, young people. And I thought, well, I could certainly attract some of that talent into an administration. And I weighed that and weighed the level of expectation of citizens, which I had to do in a different fashion, largely because I did not initiate this effort surrounding the possibilities of my candidacy. If I had done that, then the decisions would not have been what it has been, or the elements would have been considered before then, because I would have quested for it. And it's not something that I would not have liked to have done, but I think that the office of mayor is the highest honor the people of the city can bestow upon one of its citizens. I've served in that position, and I know what it takes to serve in that position. So I valued it as very serious and something that if I got into it, I would find myself working 16 hours a day as before, 7 days a week, because I would have wanted to meet the challenge. And with the level of expectation, could I have been able to reach that level of expectation, or would there have been such disappointment because in a short period of time the changes and the radical changes that are necessary could not have occurred? So all of those were things that I considered and weighed and evaluated, and I guess and said, dude, maybe it's best not to even try.
Without saying that you were not interested in politics at all. Let me look at a couple of the components of what you've said so far. First of all, you said you had every confidence that from a quantitative standpoint, from a sheer numbers voting standpoint, you could have become the mayor of New Orleans in 1990 again. What scenario did the numbers show you? Dutch Morial and Donald Mintz moving on to a runoff stage,
well, I think,
and then Dutch Morial emerging victorious over
I think
his former friend?
our polling data showed that was the most probable results of my entry into the race, and we were satisfied with those numbers, and we did a very comprehensive voter survey. It cost a substantial sum of money. It was conducted the 3 days before Thanksgiving, which makes it fairly current. Included 614 voters, 25 minutes each interview, some 70 or 75 questions in the poll. In addition to that, the mix was not what the voter registration mix is. The voter mix is 54, almost 55, 44, 45. Like that. We had
in terms of black-white breakdown?
We did a 52-48 mix in the polling. We did that intentionally by design. And that polling information was extremely encouraging because of the questions that were asked and the depth of the questions that were asked and the cross-tabulations and everything else that were done were extremely encouraging for my candidacy. But you know, a poll is nothing more than a reflection of a moment in time. Things changed during the course of the campaign, but we would have been prepared for that as well.
You talk about the difference between winning and then having won governing the city. Was part of your decision based on something that more than one person addressed as they speculated on your potentiality for getting into the campaign, and that was Dutch Morial might just win, but then he faces the prospect of trying to achieve some of the goals that you attempted to achieve in your first 8 years, tackling a city council which might enter the 1990s with, shall we say, some animosities, as some of these guys are the same guys who voted against some of your agenda several years ago. What was that a contributing factor, the fact that you can't just do it as the elected mayor, you've got to have a city council to work with you?
Of course, that was one of the factors, but by and large, those persons who were the chief adversaries and the opposition to anything that were progressive for the city, three of them are no longer on the city council.
One of whom would have been your opponent had you
One
decided
would have
to
been
run.
my opponent, one who is decided not to run again, and one who left the council. And the one who left the council early on, I think, was the chief architect, in my opinion, of the opposition, and put the cabal together. That was frustrating not only to me, but when one looks back on it, it certainly frustrated the progress of the city. And the city and the people of the city are paying for that now, in my opinion. Not that I was so right, but obviously I was not so wrong.
Your supporters, as recently as the Wednesday before your announcement, posted a full-page ad in the paper clarifying one aspect of what I think you're referring to right now, and that's the whole business that we've heard for the last several months about Dutch Morial leaving Sidney Bartholomew with a $30 million deficit. I wonder, are you ever tempted to say, I told you so, when you see the city struggling another year in a row, coming up with half a budget in some cases because we still haven't found a way to generate the revenues to make the city operate to the level to which the voters have become accustomed? There must be some, I granted a bittersweet sense of gratification, but some gratification at the same time that this is what you were warning people about 8, 9, 10 years ago.
Well, I guess some of that's present, Warren. I would not be honest if I said it wasn't present. But I think that's not the important thing, is to say that I said so. The important thing is to move from where we are now, and for those to show willingness and the leadership and the vision to address those things that still are present within our city, some of which I think we could have alleviated or either reduced the present impact had there been a cooperative spirit to venture out together. And I can illustrate numerous situations and numerous examples where there was a failure to join with the effort that we put forward as a result the efforts were unsuccessful. Had we had that kind of support, maybe things would be different today.
It was a little ironic to see several years after you were gone, some of your chief adversaries proposing things that you had proposed
Well, that's
6 or
always-
7 years earlier, when there might have been an easier chance of passing some of those measures.
That's encouraging, and I supported those measures when they were proposed by those persons who didn't support them when I had proposed them, because I see the bigger picture and the bigger interest in that. The greater interest is my city, which I love, and I think once you've served as mayor, and it's, as I said earlier, it's the highest honor that people can bestow upon you. You have a sense of propriety about the quality of your community, and you want it to do well. You want it to, I don't like to see the despair and the hopelessness that I see on the face of people that I experience when they come up to me and they make their comments and their frustrations. I'm deeply concerned about what I refer to as a loss of human capital infrastructure, the young people who are leaving the city. And people who've said to me only recently, look, run. If you don't run, I'm going to run. I mean, they're going to run out of town. That hurts me, and it cuts very deeply, because I've been here. I have no plans to go anyplace else. I love the city because the city's been good to me. It's nurtured me through difficult times. I'm a product of New Orleans and all the good that it has to offer, coupled with whatever bad it has to offer. So you feel a sense of a great disappointment about conditions, the demise, the decline, and we need to build the coalition of people and interests to reverse the trend.
We are quickly running out of time. I want to address a couple of other issues, if we could. One of your closing comments at that Thursday announcement that you wouldn't be in the race, I think you said something to the effect, take me out of this equation, and now, in a sense, you were saying, put the other two guys' feet to the fire, force them, talking to the media here, force them to address more properly the issues that need to be addressed to get our city out of its current woes. In what way haven't we seen those issues addressed yet? Obviously, you've got some feelings there about what isn't being said as we look at these mayoral contenders.
I think there should be some definitive vision for the future, some short-term, intermediate, and long-term plans for doing something about the economic conditions that befall the city, some discussion about fiscal matters of facing the city. How do we build the partnership with the state to resolve some of those fiscal needs? What do we do about campaign financing and campaign funding? The whole issue of reshaping the government, restructuring the government, the issue of a major reform. I think that we need a major charter revision. We need a restructuring of the budget process as well. We need to do something about the time in which the elections occur, and a whole range of things that probably ought to be discussed. And who has the vision, who has the creativity, who has the imagination and the capacity that these times call for to lead the city of New Orleans?
If we could ask for a brief answer, would you anticipate making some endorsement at some point in the mayoral race?
I have not given any consideration to endorsing anyone in that race. I may or may not. It depends on a number of factors. It depends on what emerges from this point forward with the candidates. Not that my endorsement is that important to any one of them, because I think the voters can make their own judgment in that regard, and they'll be looking to other people to give them advice and make suggestions to them. I guess it may not always be good for someone who was a has-been to try to become something in the process of a current election. I supported a candidate for mayor the last time. I thought it was necessary for me to do that, and we were unsuccessful. So I have to evaluate the current environment and try to think whether or not my endorsement could be a contributing factor to what I think has to be done for the city.
We are quickly running out of time, but you did also hold open the possibility we might be hearing from Dutch Morial in some other political contest. Are you giving some serious thought to either congressional or DA's race? Because both of those have been mentioned in the context of a Dutch Morial.
I probably would not be
political
interested in a in a district attorney's race. I doubt seriously whether Congress would be appealing to me. The United States Senate might be, something of that nature with a much broader, larger constituency, but I have not foreclosed any of those things, and there are persons who come to me each day, and I get letters and telephone calls encouraging and suggesting, and people sometimes see a hope for an individual that the individual doesn't see himself.
You feel a sense of relief right now, and that's the absolute last question. Are you glad you finally made this decision?
I feel very much relieved. It's a burden off my shoulders, and I hope it's a burden off the shoulders of the citizens of the city who were waiting for me to make a decision. I hope I have not disappointed them, and I hope that I've treated it in such a way that I've maintained their respect and their admiration, and that should I decide to offer myself for some office in the future, that they'll be there to help and assist.
But as far as the 1990 mayor's race is concerned, count Dutch out.
I'm out. I'm busy trying to get John Duplessis a lightweight championship fight. I want to make him the champion in 1990.
Okay, Mr. Fighter, until the end. Our thanks to former New Orleans Mayor Dutch Morial, whom we'll undoubtedly be hearing more from as the road goes on down. Stay tuned for more when Newsmakers continues after these messages.